What if I told you some of the smartest sci-fi ever made just showed up on Tubi, quietly, without hype, without warning? No banners, no noise, just films that shaped ideas, bent minds, and somehow slipped through history's cracks. Half of these were ignored, a few were mocked, some were too strange for their own time, and now they're back. Free, temporary? Watch closely, because one of these isn't what it pretends to be. The Man from Earth, 2007. This movie should not work. No effects, no action, no spaceships, no future cities. Just a living room, a group of academics, and one quiet claim that should fall apart instantly. It doesn't. The Man from Earth begins like a casual goodbye party. A college professor's moving away, friends gather, coffee pours, chairs scrape the floor. Then he drops a simple idea. What if he never aged? What if he has been alive for thousands of years? That's it. That's the movie. And somehow, you can't look away. This film was written by Jerome Bixby, a writer tied to classic sci-fi television, and it feels like someone finally let him talk without interruption. There are no tricks here. The tension comes from conversation, from logic, from belief, crashing into education. Each character reacts differently. One tries to explain it away. One gets emotional, one gets angry, one listens too carefully. The room becomes a pressure cooker, not because anything explodes, but because ideas do. What makes this film rare is how confident it is. It refuses to raise its voice. It doesn't rush. It trusts the audience to keep up. That confidence scared distributors when it first appeared. No studio push, no big release. It spread slowly through word of mouth, burned onto discs, shared like a secret. And here's the wild part. The movie never tells you what to think. It doesn't say this story is true. It doesn't say it's false. It just keeps asking questions until your own answers start to wobble. There are moments that feel uncomfortable, especially when belief systems collide. Not in a loud way, in a quiet, personal way. The kind that makes you shift in your seat. This is sci-fi without gadgets, sci-fi without noise, sci-fi as an argument that never ends. And that's why it belongs here. Because when this one leaves Tubi, you don't just lose a movie. You lose a conversation that sticks with you for years. Dark City, 1998. This movie crawled so others could run, and yes, I'm looking straight at a certain famous simulation film that came later. Dark City dropped in the late 1990s and confused almost everyone. Critics didn't know how to sell it. Audiences didn't know what they were watching. And the studio made one huge mistake. They explained too much in the opening narration. Even with that mistake, the movie survived. The story follows a man who wakes up with no memory, in a city where the night never ends and something feels deeply wrong. Streets rearrange themselves. Buildings shift. People behave like they're following scripts they didn't write. The city itself feels alive. Not friendly, not hostile, just watching. Director Alex Proyas built Dark City like a nightmare you can't fully remember. Heavy shadows, twisted architecture, faces half hidden in darkness. This isn't future sci-fi. It's dream sci-fi. A place where logic bends when you aren't looking. What makes this film ultra-rare is its timing. It arrived too early. The ideas were sharp, but the audience wasn't ready. Questions about identity, control, and memory were there, but wrapped in a style that felt strange instead of exciting. Now, it hits harder. You notice the details, how characters repeat phrases, how free will feels borrowed, how the city resets like a broken clock. These ideas feel modern now, even though the movie is decades old. And here's the truth. This film never got the credit it deserved. It influenced more popular movies that came after, but rarely gets named. It's the quiet architect standing behind louder buildings. Tubi adding Dark City isn't just generous, it's risky. Because once people really see it, they start asking uncomfortable questions about stories they thought they understood. This isn't comfort sci-fi. It's unsettling, stylish, thoughtful, and once it clicks, it doesn't let go. Watch it before it disappears back into the shadows. Logan's Run, 1976. This movie looks shiny. That's the trap. Logan's Run presents a future that feels clean, colorful, almost playful at first glance. Everyone looks young. Everyone smiles. Nobody seems worried about tomorrow. And that's because tomorrow doesn't exist past a certain age. In this world, life is perfectly planned. Comfort is guaranteed. Work is optional. Aging is not allowed. When people reach a fixed limit, they are told it's time to renew. Not end, renew. That single word does a lot of heavy lifting here. What makes Logan's Run so fascinating is how calmly it sells its idea. There's no screaming warning sign, no angry crowds. The system works because people believe in it, or pretend to. The film follows Logan, an enforcer whose job is to track down anyone who refuses to follow the rules. He's good at it. He doesn't question much, until the system turns its attention toward him. Suddenly, the perfect world feels smaller, tight, artificial. The sets are bold, very 1970s bold. Curved buildings, bright lights, strange outfits that feel futuristic and dated at the same time. But beneath all that style is a sharp idea that still lands today. What happens when comfort replaces choice? What happens when safety becomes control? This movie didn't age quietly. For years, it was treated like a kitschy relic, something fun but not serious. That was a mistake, because Logan's Run isn't asking small questions. It's asking the kind that stick around longer than trends. The reason it feels rare now is because studios don't make this kind of sci-fi anymore. Big ideas presented as entertainment, without speeches or lectures. It trusts you to notice what's wrong on your own. Watching it now, the message hits harder, not louder, harder. This isn't just a retro sci-fi trip. It's a warning wrapped in bright colors, and it deserves way more respect than it ever got. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. This is not an easy movie, and that's exactly why it matters. The Man Who Fell to Earth follows an outsider who arrives with a quiet mission and an unfamiliar face. He looks human. He sounds human. But everything about this world overwhelms him. Noise, greed, distraction, excess. Instead of explosions or spectacle, this film chooses discomfort. The story moves slowly, sometimes painfully so, but on purpose. You are meant to feel out of place, just like the main character. Scenes stretch, conversations drift, time feels strange. That's the point. What makes this movie ultra-rare is how little it cares about pleasing you. It refuses to explain itself clearly. It refuses to rush. It watches humanity the way a stranger would. With curiosity, with confusion, with growing sadness. There's a sharp contrast at the heart of the film. Advanced knowledge meets basic human weakness. Brilliant plans get tangled in habits, comfort, and temptation. The world doesn't attack the outsider, it absorbs him. That's the real twist here. This film came out during a time when sci-fi was splitting into two paths, to loud adventures, thoughtful experiments. This one chose the harder road, and because of that, it was misunderstood for years. Some viewers expected answers, others expected action. What they got instead was a mirror held at an awkward angle. Watching it now feels different. The themes feel closer. Fame, isolation, overindulgence, losing focus, the quiet damage of distraction. These ideas feel modern, even though the film is decades old. Tubi carrying this title is surprising. This is not casual background viewing. This is sit down and pay attention viewing. It's strange, it's heavy, it's unforgettable. And once it ends, you don't feel entertained. You feel exposed. That's why it belongs on this list. Ghost in the Shell, 1995. This movie changed everything. Most people just didn't realize it at the time. Ghost in the Shell arrived quietly outside the mainstream, carrying ideas that would later be borrowed, copied, and softened for mass appeal. Identity, consciousness, memory. What makes someone real? And it does all of that without rushing. Set in a future where technology and humanity blend seamlessly, the story follows a lead character questioning her own existence. Not in a dramatic way, in a calm, unsettling way. The kind of questioning that doesn't come with easy answers. What makes this film feel ultra-rare now is how disciplined it is. No hand-holding, no emotional shortcuts. It trusts the viewer completely. If you miss something, the movie does not stop for you. The visuals are hypnotic. Rain-soaked cityscapes, quiet moments of reflection, long stretches without dialogue. Every frame feels intentional, not flashy, purposeful. When this film first appeared, many dismissed it as just animation. That label cost it years of proper recognition. But this isn't animation as a genre. It's animation as a tool, a way to explore ideas that live action struggled to handle at the time. Its influence is everywhere now. Films that came later borrowed its look, its themes, even its pacing, but few matched its restraint. What really makes Ghost in the Shell hit hard is how relevant it still feels. Questions about identity, about where the self ends and the system begins, about how much of us is choice and how much is programming. This movie doesn't shout, it whispers. And that whisper stays in your head long after the screen goes dark. If you've never seen it, this is your moment. If you've only heard about it, this is your correction. Because once this one leaves Tubi, you'll wonder why you waited so long. Sphere, 1998. This movie scared people in a quiet way. And quiet fear always lasts longer. Fear takes a simple setup and slowly tightens it until you realize there's nowhere to breathe. A team of experts is sent deep underwater to study something unknown. Not loud, not flashy, just unknown. And from the moment they arrive, the ocean stops feeling like scenery and starts feeling like pressure. What makes fear special isn't what they find. It's what the environment does to them. Down there, thoughts feel heavier, emotions surface faster, confidence cracks. The movie understands something most sci-fi misses. Fear doesn't always come from monsters. Sometimes it comes from your own mind when it's given too much space. The setting does a lot of the work. Endless dark water, metallic corridors, no easy exits. Every conversation feels trapped inside steel walls. Even silence feels loud. When this film came out, expectations hurt it. People wanted fast thrills. They wanted clear answers. Sphere refuses both. It moves patiently. It lets characters unravel in small, believable ways. Nobody suddenly turns heroic. Nobody stays fully rational. What makes this movie ultra rare today is how serious it is about psychology. It treats intelligence as a weakness. The smarter the characters are, the more dangerous their thoughts become. Knowledge doesn't save them. It complicates everything. Watching it now, the film feels more mature than its reputation. It isn't about the ocean. It's about what happens when humans are forced to confront ideas they cannot control. The pacing is deliberate. Some scenes linger longer than expected. That's intentional. It wants you uncomfortable. It wants you waiting. This isn't background sci-fi, this is lean-forward sci-fi, and when it ends, the relief you feel isn't victory. It's escape. That alone earns it a spot here. Krull, 1983. Krull is messy, and that's exactly why it's great. This movie came from a time when studios were throwing ideas into the air and hoping something stuck. Sci-fi, fantasy, adventure, romance, myth. Krull tried to be all of it at once, and honestly, that chaos is part of the charm. The story feels like a fairy tale told by someone who grew up on space operas. There's a quest, a strange weapon, a hero who isn't sure he's a hero, allies who feel pulled from different genres entirely. At the time, critics didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't serious enough. It wasn't silly enough. It didn't fit cleanly anywhere, so it faded. But cult films don't disappear. They wait. Watching Krull now feels like opening a forgotten toy box. The effects are practical. The creatures feel handmade. The world feels physical. Nothing here feels fake in the modern sense. You can tell people built this. What makes Krull ultra rare now is its sincerity. It believes in its story without irony. It never winks at the audience. It never apologizes for being strange. It commits. And that commitment is refreshing. Modern sci-fi often hides behind humor or cynicism. Krull doesn't. It says, here's the story. Come with us or don't. That confidence is rare now. Is it perfect? No. Is it memorable? Absolutely. This is the kind of film that rewards imagination more than logic. And sometimes that's exactly what sci-fi should do. If you missed it back then, this is your second chance. If you saw it once and forgot it, this is your reminder. Krull isn't polished. It's heartfelt. And that matters more. The Abyss, 1989. This film was a risk, a big one. The Abyss takes place almost entirely underwater in conditions that were genuinely difficult for the people making it. And you can feel that effort in every frame. This isn't comfortable sci-fi. It's damp, dark, exhausting. The story follows a group of workers and specialists drawn into something deeper than their job description. What starts as a technical mission slowly turns into a test of patience, trust, and endurance. What makes The Abyss stand out is how grounded it feels. Even when the story leans toward the unknown, it stays focused on human reactions. Stress, fatigue, fear, hope. These emotions feel earned, not scripted. This movie struggled behind the scenes. Long shoots, difficult conditions, tension on set, and somehow, that struggle made it better. The pressure shows. The performances feel raw. Conversations feel strained in a believable way. When it was released, it didn't fit expectations. It wasn't loud enough for some, too thoughtful for others. It lived in an awkward middle space, and because of that, it never got the lasting praise it deserved. Watching it now, it feels ahead of its time. Environmental themes, communication over conflict, curiosity instead of aggression. These ideas feel surprisingly modern. The Abyss isn't fast. It doesn't rush to impress. It builds. And when it finally opens up, it feels earned. Not shocking. Earned. This is sci-fi that respects patience and rewards it. If you've never seen it properly without distractions, this is the moment. Because films like this don't come around often. Colossal, 2016. This movie tricks you on purpose, and that's not a bad thing. Colossal looks harmless at first. Quirky setup, small-town energy, a little humor. You think you're settling in for something light. Then it slowly shifts its weight, and suddenly you realize this isn't the movie you thought you were watching. The story follows a woman whose life feels stalled, messy, directionless. Then something strange happens. Her movements start affecting something far away in a way that makes absolutely no sense at first. The movie doesn't rush to explain it. It lets the idea breathe. What makes Colossal rare is how personal it is. This isn't sci-fi about saving the world. It's sci-fi about consequences, about how behavior ripples outward, about how people avoid responsibility until it stares them in the face. The genius move here is scale. Something massive mirrors something small. Emotional moments are tied to larger events without spelling it out. The film trusts you to connect those dots. When it was released, a lot of viewers didn't know how to react. Some expected spectacle, others wanted comedy. What they got was something sharper, something uncomfortable in a quiet way. Watching it now, it feels bold. It refuses to soften its message. It shows how patterns repeat, how power can hide behind charm, how self-awareness arrives late. The sci-fi element isn't the point, it's the amplifier. And that's why Colossal sticks, it sneaks up on you. You don't leave quoting lines. You leave replaying scenes in your head. This is one of those films that improves after it ends. That's rare, and that earns its place here. Antiviral, 2012. This movie is cold. Intentionally cold. Antiviral takes place in a future where obsession is not only accepted, it's marketed. People don't just admire public figures. They want pieces of their lives. Physical pieces. The movie presents this idea without drama or shock. Just routine. And that makes it unsettling. The main character works in this system. He's quiet, detached, almost invisible. That detachment is the point. The world around him treats extreme behavior as normal. The film never tells you how to feel. It simply shows you how far normalization can go. What makes Antiviral ultra-rare is its restraint. It avoids loud moments. It avoids comfort. The color palette feels drained. Scenes feel sterile. Even emotional moments feel distant. When it came out, many viewers bounced off it. It wasn't entertaining in the traditional sense. It wasn't trying to be. It was holding up a mirror and waiting. Watching it now, the themes feel sharper. Fame as product, identity as brand, desire filtered through systems. The film predicted trends without yelling about them. The pacing is deliberate. Sometimes slow, sometimes uncomfortable. That discomfort is intentional. You are not meant to relax. This is sci-fi as observation, not warning, observation. And that's why it matters. Antiviral doesn't beg for attention. It waits for the right viewer. If you're paying attention, it hits harder than most films twice its size. Minor premise, 2020. This one flew completely under the radar, and it shouldn't have. Minor premise is small, focused, tight, a single location, a single experiment, a single mind under pressure. That simplicity is its strength. The story centers on a scientist trying to prove himself. Ambition drives him. Doubt follows closely behind. When an experiment goes wrong, his mind fractures into competing parts of his personality. Not metaphorically, literally. What makes this film special is how clearly it presents a complex idea. Instead of leaning on visuals, it leans on performance. Each fragment of the mind feels distinct, logical, emotional, fearful, aggressive, all fighting for control. The sci-fi here is clean and grounded. No flashy tech, no exaggerated future. Just one room and a problem that grows more dangerous by the minute. When this film released, it didn't get much attention. No big names, no massive push. It quietly found its audience online, and those who saw it talked about it. Watching it now, it feels smart without being smug. It respects the viewer. It doesn't repeat itself. It doesn't over-explain. The tension comes from time, from decisions, from watching someone argue with themselves in ways that feel disturbingly familiar. This movie understands something important. The scariest conflicts don't come from outside. They come from inside. Minor premise proves you don't need scale to make sci-fi hit hard. You need focus. And once it ends, you realize how rare that focus really is. Intersect, 2020. This movie doesn't hold your hand. It barely even looks back to see if you're following. Intersect starts with ambition, big ideas, big confidence. A group of students builds a machine that isn't supposed to work. And then it does, sort of. That's when the film stops being a college sci-fi experiment and turns into something darker and more thoughtful. What makes Intersect rare is how fearless it is about being complicated. It doesn't simplify its ideas for comfort. It lets concepts pile up. Time, reality, consequences. The movie trusts that you're smarter than most films assume. The visuals are gritty, real. Nothing feels polished for the sake of style. The world feels grounded, which makes the strange moments feel heavier. When things bend, they really bend. This film didn't get much attention on release, no big marketing, no loud buzz. Honestly, that makes sense. It's not designed for passive viewing. You have to lock in. Watching it now, it feels like a reminder of what indie sci-fi does best. Take risks, ask uncomfortable questions, leave loose ends. It's not perfect, and it doesn't try to be. It cares more about ideas than approval. This is sci-fi for people who like thinking after the credits roll, and those films are getting harder to find. The Infinite Man, 2014. This movie looks small. That's another trap. The Infinite Man is built around repetition, time loops, the same moments replayed with tiny changes. At first, it feels gentle, almost sweet. A quiet story about love and planning and wanting things to be perfect. Then the cracks appear. What makes this film special is how patient it is. It doesn't rush to chaos. It lets patterns form, it lets mistakes repeat. And it shows how control can slowly turn into obsession. The sci-fi element is clean and simple. No noise, no clutter. Just one idea explored from every angle. and each angle reveals something new. When this movie came out, many people missed it entirely. It didn't shout. It didn't market itself as clever. It just existed quietly. Watching it now feels like discovering a handwritten note in a digital world. It's personal, intimate, thoughtful. The performances sell it. You believe the frustration, the hope, the quiet panic of realizing perfection is impossible. This film understands something very human. Trying to fix everything often breaks the thing you're trying to protect. That idea hits harder than any spectacle ever could. The Infinite Man proves sci-fi doesn't need scale. It needs honesty. Babylon 5, The Gathering, 1993. Before this became a series, it started as a risk, a strange one, and a very patient one. Babylon 5. The Gathering didn't arrive like a typical sci-fi pilot. It didn't rush to impress. It didn't throw action at the screen to keep you awake. Instead, it introduced a space station that felt lived in, political, and unfinished. On purpose. From the first moments, you can tell this story wants to go somewhere long-term. At the time, that was almost unheard of. Most sci-fi on television worked like a reset button. Problems appeared. Problems were solved. Characters stayed mostly the same. This project rejected that idea completely. It planned ahead. It assumed viewers would remember details. It trusted that patience could be rewarded. That alone made it risky. The Gathering sets up a universe where diplomacy matters more than strength, where conversations carry weight, and where decisions echo beyond a single episode. Different groups with different goals are forced into the same space, and tension grows not from explosions, but from disagreement and misunderstanding. The pilot is rough in places, and that's not a flaw. You can see the ambition pushing against technical limits. Some effects feel simple, some moments feel slow, but underneath that, there's confidence, a belief that if the foundation is strong, everything else can be built later, and it was. Watching it now, especially knowing what followed, makes the pilot feel smarter than it first appears. Small lines of dialogue hint at future conflicts. Characters are introduced with layers, not labels. Nobody feels purely right or purely wrong. That gray space is where the show lives. The pacing is deliberate. This isn't fast viewing. It doesn't beg for attention. It asks you to lean in, to listen, to notice how much is being set up quietly in the background. Tubi carrying this pilot matters more than it seems. Finding the beginning of a long story changes how you understand everything that comes after. You see the choices being made before success was guaranteed, before the audience existed. This is sci-fi built on trust. Trust in ideas, trust in viewers, and that kind of respect is rare now. The Twilight Zone, 1959. This isn't just a show, it's the blueprint. Before sci-fi became loud, before it chased effects or franchises, The Twilight Zone showed how powerful an idea could be when stripped down to its core. One concept, one twist, one uncomfortable truth, then cut to black. Every episode feels like a dare. What makes this series ultra-rare on Tubi is accessibility. For years, people talked about it more than they watched it, referenced it, quoted it, parodied it. But actually sitting down and letting the episodes roll back to back, that hits different. The stories are simple on the surface. A man wants peace and quiet. A town looks perfect. A device promises something helpful. Then one small detail shifts and suddenly everything collapses. No explosions, no spectacle, just ideas doing damage. What still works today is the clarity. These episodes don't ramble. They don't explain too much. They move fast and leave scars. Many modern sci-fi owes its entire structure to this format, whether it admits it or not. Me watching it now feels shocking in a quiet way. Not because of visuals, but because of how bold the writing is. These stories trusted the audience decades before that was common. Tubi having the original series feels almost unreal. This is required viewing disguised as entertainment. If you only watch a few episodes, you'll still feel it. If you binge it, you'll understand why sci-fi looks the way it does today. This isn't nostalgia. This is foundation. Farscape, 1999. This show was brave when bravery wasn't rewarded. Farscape arrived at a time when sci-fi television was expected to behave. Clear heroes, clean rules, familiar arcs. Farscape ignored all of that. It was messy, emotional, weird, loud, sometimes deeply uncomfortable, and that's why it mattered. The story follows a human thrown into a chaotic universe that does not care about him. He doesn't adapt easily. He struggles. He breaks. He changes. The show lets that happen. What makes Farscape ultra-rare is its refusal to soften its edges. Characters argue, make bad choices, carry emotional weight episode to episode. Consequences stick. The production style was risky. Practical effects, strange designs, expressive creatures. It didn't try to look realistic, it tried to feel alive. When it aired, it divided audiences. Some loved it, others didn't know what to do with it. It was too strange to be safe, too emotional to be background viewing. Watching it now, it feels ahead of its time. Long arcs, character growth that hurts, humor mixed with real tension. Tubi carrying Farscape is huge. This is not casual streaming. This is commitment viewing, and it pays off if you let it. This show doesn't just entertain. It challenges your expectations of what sci-fi can be, and that's rare. THX-1138, 1971. This is the original system control sci-fi, before the genre learned how to hide it. THX-1138 imagines a future where emotions are suppressed, routines are enforced, and individuality is treated like a problem to be corrected. People don't rebel loudly, they comply quietly. That silence is the most unsettling part. The film strips humanity down to repetition, medication, and constant observation. Conversations feel empty. Spaces feel sterile. Even freedom feels unfamiliar when it finally appears. What makes this a perfect replacement is confidence. Like Dark City, it never jokes, never softens, never explains itself too much. It commits fully to its idea and dares the viewer to sit with the discomfort. This movie influenced decades of sci-fi that came later, but rarely gets named directly. Its fingerprints are everywhere. Control through comfort. Order disguised as safety. A world that functions perfectly while something essential is missing. Watching it now feels sharper than ever. Minimal dialogue, long silences, a sense that the system doesn't need to threaten anyone because everyone already believes in it. That's not just sci-fi. That's a warning delivered without noise. Remember how this started? Quiet drops, no noise, no warning, just sci-fi that refuses to beg for attention. These movies won't sit around forever, and some of them don't come back once they're gone. So tell me, which one surprised you? Which one did you sleep on? Drop it in the comments. Share this with someone who still thinks free means forgettable, because the best ideas never leave quietly.